Alhamdulillah, sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'd. I'm here to facilitate how we are going to implement the teaching and learning of the new syllabus, particularly the English language, and has been earlier discussed or demonstrated by my fellow colleague. We have seen the general overview of how the English secondary book layout is designed, and we have seen all these books have so many things in common. The way they are laid out, they are not different from all the English books we used to see. But the difference is these are books that are designed, whose contents are developed, written, and completed by the Somali citizens, Somali people. So it's our own asset. And it's our belief that the way it is designed and the way and the objectives and the methodologies and the assessment is fully implemented in our schools, we are going to achieve the general objective of learning of English language and literature. Now, having said that, we have every book, book 1, book 9, grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, every book has got all the skills, the writing, the reading skills, the listening, and the speaking skills. What is new in this syllabus could be the literature aspect, because it's not new in the Somali society or in our learning institutions, because it is being taught in the Somali language, as we call it, Sugan. Now it's in our English books, and these books are integrated. We teach them in an integrated form. What do I mean by integrated? That when we are teaching English, listening and speaking, because you see A, listening and speaking, B, reading comprehension, C, vocabulary, D, grammar, sometimes E might be an aspect of literature. Let's say riddles or proverbs, or sometimes written literature, poem, or prose, or oral or narrative poem. Then finally, every last lesson of every unit in all the books, we have writing to develop the writing skills, which is mostly associated with what students have read in the reading comprehension lessons. Now, I don't want to dwell much on that. We have already talked about Unit 2, and my former colleague has highlighted on that so much. So, in this unit, from grade 9, Unit 4, the title is Saving Money in the Bank. Saving money in the bank. Now, as we have said, every unit is divided with listening and speaking, A, B, C, D, the way we have already said. So here, listening and speaking, this is the objective. Now, you as a teacher, since this approach is the student-centered approach, you as a teacher, your space is not missing, but you have been helped. Your workload has been reduced. Most of the activities students will take Meaning, the students are the ones teaching themselves. You tell them how they will. That's the bottom line. Show them the guideline. But you know, in the olden or in the old ways, traditional ways of teaching, teacher-centered approach, the teachers were very trained. They used to prepare notes, come and dictate to students, define for them. Now, that has been eased for you. All you do is, first thing first, when you introduce the unit, listening and speaking, take this objective, which is going to help you develop the listening and speaking skills. Write it maybe on the whiteboard or the blackboard. Then, follow the methodologies. How do you follow? You are not the one learning, it is the student. Always start with brainstorming. Let learners practice the dialogue. For example, most of the listening and speaking units in our books, we have developed some contents, conversational content and dialogues to kickstart what they are going to read and write. And this develops their listening and speaking skills. An example is a dialogue. Now, in this unit, we have a dialogue. So what do? Let learners practice the dialogue. How do you do that? You will not come to the class and tell, practice the dialogue. You are a teacher, you know how that is done. You can ask the students, we want to practice this dialogue. How many of you, or by show of hands, which two students want to come here in front of the class, read this dialogue, or sit where they are and practice this dialogue? Or they can voluntarily, students will come out and practice the dialogue. Or you can select 2 students and practice the dialogue. Now, when they practice the dialogue, what are we going to achieve from that? 1, their speaking ability. How do I know that this student has good speaking or listening ability? How they participate and contribute. And other models that we have already talked about before, for example, how do they take turns? How are they taking turns? It's you, the teacher, to check, observation. When you're observing, when the student is practicing a dialogue, he's representing a character in the book. Maybe there are 2 boys, or 2 men, or 2 women, or a boy or a woman, or whatever, who are having a dialogue. One character standing for the other. How is this student pronouncing the words? Is he pronouncing correctly? Is he giving the other student chance to respond? Like, for example, if the dialogue was, Muhammad, have you done your exams this semester? Before the other student answers, yes, what do you got? You see, turn taking. Let him give his space. Negotiation skills. Let them develop the negotiation skills to develop their speaking, listening and speaking ability. Tell the student to make dialogues. Now that they have discussed, they have, practiced the dialogue, now give them time. In pairs. Let them make dialogues in pairs. For example, in groups of 2, sit together. If the dialogue was about a visit to a place I like, Give them choice. Give them choice. Let them choose. Let them choose any topic of their own. Let them explore their potential. Let them practice in pairs and then make their own dialogue. So how am I going to demonstrate the ability to participate in dialogue? How am I going to achieve this objective? After asking these questions, after asking the student these questions, after observing assessment, observing their turn-taking skills, do they take turns? Do they agree or disagree politely? How do they cooperate? You know, turn-taking is a broad word. This is a very rich word. You know, when we say turn-taking, take your turn, I take my turn. It could mean simple, but turn-taking is a life skill that if developed, will even help students even outside school. This turn-taking and interactive segment of how they practice dialogue and take turns will enable them to break the ice. Inta badan waxaan aragnaa ardayda luqadii ayagoo mataqaanaa loo dhigayo buug akhrin karo qori karo haddana markaad af ingiriis kula hadasho adoo macallin ah af Soomaali ku jawaabay why kalsoonidii maqan kalsoonidaas waxa abuurayo ayay ka mid tahay marka waxaan. So we need to make our students have confidence in themselves. Let them use that oratory skills of the Somali culture into developing English language. That's our main objective here. Dialogue and conversation. When students converse, as you know, because every teacher assesses his students and he knows their level of understanding is not the same. There are students who are very bright, very tough in your class. There are others who are medium, others who are very low. When you are selecting the dialogue, don't select too tough students to perform the dialogue. Try to mix. Let them converse. Let every student feels that he is part of the class. It's a society. Now, this teaching method we have chosen, the student-centered approach or the student-centered learning, is a collective responsibility where everyone is learning. This dialogue conversation, when you're asking these questions, instead of dictating everything, when you're asking them these questions and following this methodology, you are giving the students to unlock their potential. You see? To be able to exploit their talent. Those weak students who are shy of speaking in English, who are not confident, will gather the courage to converse in the next lesson. Because when he has had a dialogue with someone who has good turn-taking skills, he has learned something, tomorrow he wants to do the same. So this creates an English-speaking culture in the school, in the class environment. Let learners practice this conversation between Bile and Timiro. Now this one is in the textbook, is in this unit. There is a dialogue. There is already a dialogue. Tell them to practice this. Choose, let one student act as Timiro and one as Bile. This will be Bile and his sister Timiro. Because we know in the class we have both female and male students. So this interactive segment should not be dominated by the boys. It should not be dominated by the girls. We should give everyone a chance. And this is what I've already spoken about, either picking two students to play the role of the two characters. The characters I'm talking about are Billy and Timiro. Or by show of hands, allowing students to voluntarily take roles of Billy and Timiro. This one is the best preferred one. Tell students always, do not be the sage at the center. When you're a teacher, don't be the person who is the authority. Let the students help you manage the classroom. Give the rules. But that does not mean you should abscond your duty as the manager of the classroom. But allow students to interact and do the activities on their own. Your correction, your knowledge, your help should be the final, should be the last thing to be done after the students have utilized what they know or don't. Okay. Again, another methodology that we'll be using in the listening and speaking segment is discussion. You will see most of the units, discussion will always be there. Let the student discuss about banks and bank services to give them a background information of what they are going to read, of what they are about to listen and read. Now, this discussion about the bank, since they are going to read a comprehension passage about saving money in the bank,